ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining today's Bhagavatam class. We're reading Canto 1, Chapter 16, verse 19. Dharma uvacha kachit bhadre anamayam atmanaste vichaya simlayate shanmukhena alakshye bhavatim antaradhim Dure bandhum shochasi kanchanamba Kachid bhadre anamayam atmanaste Vichaya simlayate shanmukhena Alakshye bhavatim antaradhim Dure bandhum shochasi kanchanamba Kachid bhadre anamayam atmanaste Vichaya simlayate shanmukhena Alakshye bhavati mantaradhim Dure bandhum shochasi kanchanamba Kachid bhadre anamayam Vichaya simlayate shanmukhena Alakshye antaradhim Dure bandhum shochasi kanchanamba. Word to word translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Dharmaha Uvacha. Dharma inquired. Kachit whether. Bhadre madam. Anamayam quite hale and hearty. Atmanaha self. Te unto you. Vichaya asi appear to be covered with the shadow of grief. Mlayata which darkens. Ishat slightly. Mukhena by the face. Alakshaye you look. Bhavatim unto yourself. Antaradhim some disease within. Dure long distant. Bandhum friend. Shochasi thinking of. Kanchana someone. Amba O mother. Translation. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? Purport. The people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people in this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. The particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together. To earn a livelihood, the father lives at a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I request you all to offer a prayer so that the right words come at the right time. The glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. In today's verse, we're going to be looking at two themes that are very prevalent in today's daily life. So, if any of you have friends at Stanford or distribute books at Stanford, you would know that Stanford has many lakes, small lakes, which have a lot of ducks in them. And Stanford is infamous for having put a lot of pressure on the students. It's not that the university puts a lot of pressure, it's that there's a lot of peer pressure because most of the students admitted there are very competitive and they're also very good at academics, extracurriculars, and in many fields. So there's this notion of what is known as the Stanford duck syndrome, which means that you see the ducks, they are swimming very calmly and peacefully on the surface. But actually, if you look underneath, what is happening is they're flailing. They're always moving their legs in order to just stay afloat. So it's exactly what Srila Prabhupada is talking about when he says that the status quo, maintaining the status quo is becoming very difficult and there are always a lot of anxieties. So if you look at the Stanford duck again, it's trying its best to look calm and peaceful on the outside. So it's a facade and it's masquerading the internal unhappiness and it seems like a very calm, peaceful environment, but it is suffering. It is trying its best to just stay afloat, not even swim and move, just to stay afloat. So this is not true just for Stanford, but this is also true for many of us, as all the exalted book distributors in front of me and in this congregation would know. When you speak to someone or when you ask someone about books, they said, I'm good. And many times they may seem calm, they may seem collected, they may seem like they have everything going well for them, but they know internally that no, there are a lot of problems that they're facing, there are a lot of anxieties that they're unable to face or even talk about. Generally, the notion, at least in this society, is that generally the male would provide for the family, and so the male cannot feel any pain. In India, there's something known as "mard ko dard nahi hota hai." So it means a man is one who does not feel any pain. And these kind of notions are propagated in society. So there is no safe space for anyone who ascribes to this societal norms of male to feel sadness or to feel pain or to struggle or show that struggle to others. So what happens is they bottle it up within. So these anxieties, when bottled up, they get worse. As Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, sometimes when we have some interjecting points to make and we hold back, if we are not in the correct qualification, that may eat us from within. So that is how anxieties work in general in this world. They eat away quietly, and then we see that many people, they out of the blue, they may seem like regular people, happy, everything, but at some point of time they just take their lives, right? We see not just in regular life, we see celebrities who everybody puts on a pedestal and seem like they have all the fame and name, money, everything. And especially we see many singers who go completely off track, and they may have everything that anybody would aspire for, but then they suddenly have some weird overdose and then they just pass away. So these are the anxieties that Kali Yuga takes away very quietly. So in the corporate culture, this is known as quiet quitting. So when somebody has lost motivation to contribute to the company's mission, they would just not contribute to conversations and help design or take the product forward. They would just do what they're told and then they would just leave. And slowly they would quit and move to another company, right? So that is something that is happening not just in the corporate world, but in real life as well. Quiet quitting is they're quitting their body itself, right? So in today's purport, Dharma, who is asking Prithvi, as Prabhu was mentioning yesterday's verse, Prithvi is one of the 7 mothers, and another name for Prithvi is Dhara. So Dhara is the Bhumi Devi, And it was Bhumi Devi who requested Krishna to be to take avatar so that the irreligiosity can be removed from this world. So now we are talking about how she's standing on only one leg, and that is truthfulness, which is also eroding quite a bit because there's only very few. There are only 4 sampradayas, and even they are getting contaminated. And there are like sahajiyas, and there's so many other people who go off track that we've heard about. So there's very little truth that is still prevailing in this world. So it is great that Prabhupada's focus was on distributing and preaching. It's not a stationary thing, it's a movement. Like I remember in South India, not Sri Rangam, but there is a South Indian temple where the head pujari was very pleased. So there's in South Indian temples, there's this what is known as a gopuram, or it's like a large pyramid to signify that the Lord is the highest and he has to have the most grand or most opulent structures built for him. And the entire gopuram that you would see in India would have many beautiful carvings and sculptures and so on. So this pujari was praising Srila Prabhupada in one sense, where when there was a Russian couple and a child who walked into the temple, and they had the tilak, kantimala on their necks, and it's sometimes a very rare sight, especially in very conservative South Indian temples, to have foreigners visit. In fact, there are some places like Jagannath Puri where foreigners, so-called foreigners, are not allowed into the temple for whatever reason. But the head pujari, he's also very famous in the Sri Vaishnava Mutt. So he was saying that he saw that the child, it was like a baby, basically, was pointing to one of the sculptures in the one of the carvings in the temple and was saying Putana, Putana. And the pujari was like amazed because not even the children of devotees or part of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya would not recognize that that carving was supposed to depict Putana. But this baby was able to point and say, and he was praising Srila Prabhupada because he knew from the tilak and the kantimala that these are devotees from ISKCON. And he came on a news channel and he was willing to say that Srila Prabhupada has contributed so much to society that someone from a completely different country was able to take up the culture, understand the true essence of it, and also live that life. Whereas some people who take it for granted, who live right there, maybe even in the temple, might just take it for granted and not take it with that same intent. In today's verse, we see that the progression of Kali Yuga has increased, and Prabhupada is talking about, and the purport and Prabhupada are talking about, suffering from some internal disease or thinking of some relative who's away in a distant place. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments to the previous verse that Prabhu spoke about yesterday, that this sight of this bull and cow was not visible to everybody. Parikshit Maharaj had the mystic potency to view it, and only he could view it, not the others, because he was qualified and he had the mystic potency to view it. And he's viewing it for a very particular reason. Now, when you say thinking of some relative who's very far away and a distant place, as we all would resonate with, in today's world, there is almost no inkling of what is known as a joint family. Everything is a nuclear family. And there is this notion in, we could say, psychology, which is known as the tail end. So generally, what happens is a child would live with their parents up to maybe 18 years of age, where they would spend every day of their life with the parent. Basically, I mean, go to college, school, and come back. But basically, they would live with the parents. Once they move out for college or move across the country or move across the globe, for example, the amount of time that they get to spend with their family dwindles a lot. Like you can take for maybe Jesh Prabhu and Avanish Prabhu, anybody on this call, you can take, for example, you can see that at max in 365 days, you would spend 14 or 15 days with your family, which would basically be the holidays. So the main premise of that tail end philosophy is that 91% of the time you're ever going to spend with your parents has already passed by the time you're age 18, because 18 years of daily life spent with them, and now you have only 14 days a year, and you never know when anybody might leave their body. So you have barely 8 or 9% of the time you're ever going to spend with your family, with the closest ones who have sacrificed so much for you. You only have 14 days a year. So he's trying to say you need to value the time that you spend, not just with family. This isn't to say that you attach yourself to them, Because in the 10th canto, 45th chapter, 5th verse, Krishna himself says the same thing, because he did not get to spend time with Devaki and Vasudev Maharaj. So in the 10:45:5, Krishna says, with one's body, one can acquire all goals of life, and it is one's parents who give the body birth and sustenance. Therefore, no mortal man can repay his debt to his parents, even if he serves them for a full lifetime of 100 years. So Krishna himself is telling, along with Balram, he's telling his parents that you have made so many sacrifices. If we see in the Prahlad Maharaj, he says, Balasya Neha Sharanam Pitra Narsimha. He tells Narsimhadev, Balasya Sharanam, the person who gets shelter as a child. The love of Krishna, Narsimhadev, comes through the parents to the child. It depends. So, how much ever good karma you have, that much love you would receive from your parents. And we know from our philosophy that we can only give what we already have. Only if we have really felt love, whether it's from parents, whether it's from friends, whether it's from seniors, or from the Supreme Lord Himself, only if we have received that love can we give it to others. So it is very important that any parent or anybody who's in a position like a father figure or a mother figure should develop or demonstrate that love and affection to anybody who is their dependent. And very fittingly, this weekend is also Mother's Day. So it would be nice if you can call up your mothers and offer your sincere gratitude to them. It would be maybe a 10-minute call, but it would mean the world to them to do that. So because also of the tail end, maybe we never know when that 5% becomes zero. So it's important to do it when it's possible. So yesterday and today we spoke about a lot of the problems that are prevalent in Kali Yuga. So there's broken families, and there's people are not. So I think Prabhupada says they're not blessed. Okay, the particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together, and we also spoke about all the anxieties that plague everybody and how people are unable to cope up with that stress. I think Jesh Prabhu, you can confirm, like as a student, you would have not just the work pressure, but you will have to do teaching, and you need to survive. You need to actually show a certain way that you are a good, competent scholar. There's no space for you to be vulnerable and show your, you could say, vulnerable side to your colleagues, right? So there's always a certain, pressure to always perform and stay. That is the status quo these days, because it's very competitive. And that can really take a toll on everybody's life, and that's the reason why the lifespan will start reducing. We see now, as Prabhupada was saying yesterday, that a lot of the diseases are man-made, right? We have genetically modified food. We think it'll increase the production. Instead, it increases the diseases, and it gets worse from here on. Like pollution, climate. People are trying to like cover up that there's no climate change, but actually it's going to come back and bite us. So all of these are negativities that we are talking about. But Shukadeva Goswami says in the Kali Yuga, in the 12th canto, 3rd and 4th chapters, Prabhupada says there are a lot of descriptions of what happens in Kali Yuga, how there will be no food, how there will be marriage just based on how much pleasure one can give to the other, just based on looks and all of these things. There's no deeper bond. And in fact, the 12th canto says that the lifespan would be just 15 or 16. That would be the like birth, and most people would pass away by 16. And but despite all of these, Shukadeva Goswami says, Kaler dosha nidhe rajan astihi eko mahatguna. He says, despite all of these, Kaler dosha is faults. Despite Kali Yuga having all of these faults, astihi eko mahatguna. There is one mahatguna. Kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangat param vrajet. It says, despite all of these flaws, there is one way in which you can overcome all of these faults, and that is the holy name of the Lord. Kirtana eva krishnasya. Krishna, the Sankirtan of Krishna, is the only way. Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet. It can take you to Mukta Sangha, to have the association of those who are Mukta, not just Jivan Mukta, but who have achieved the spiritual abode. So there's a lot of emphasis given to Kirtan. And sometimes we may, at least I, fall prey to the offense that sometimes I think the glories of the holy name are an imagination. So I try my best to listen to authors. Like Burijan Prabhu has a book on japa, and we have there are japa seminars right now. Vaisheshika Maharaj and Keshav Swami, they have this Rise retreat where they're talking about different ways to improve your chanting. It's like a small retreat where a lot of Londoners come in, and then they have this retreat. Yesterday, Maharaj was giving a class. So I wanted to touch upon a little few points on a few pastimes that show the strength and the importance, the emphasis on the holy name, and why Kirtana Deva Krishnasya is important for this day and age. So there is this, you would know the devotee known as Subudhi Rai, who was a Brahman in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's this pastime where Subudhi Rai was outcast, like he had interacted with a person from a different faith, and in that time they were very conservative Brahmins, and if anybody would do so, they would be considered an outcast and they would not be accepted in the association of the Brahmanas. And at that time, he wanted to go back into the association. So Subudhi Rai would ask, how can I do this? So some people would say, there's no way, you need to kill yourself. Some people would say, you need to drink boiling ghee. And if you drink boiling ghee, it basically means you're killing yourself, right? So they say that you need to go to the other faith. You cannot be a part of this community anymore. And he was completely thrown away, Subudhi Rai. And he knew there's only one person who can protect him. And when he goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that all you need to do is chant the holy name of the Lord. All your impurities would go away. And the emphasis that's given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there is very heartening for everybody, that we may all have our own impurities. We may all have our own imperfections. We may have our own weaknesses that we are trying to fight. And like Chaitanya Charan Prabhu always gives the war metaphor, that we're always in a war. When we're chanting japa, we're fighting a war against Maya, or we're preparing for that war against Maya. And there is also this pastime where Vallabhacharya ji he's also in part of the Chaitanya Leela. So he is very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they're speaking about some Tattva Siddhanta. And at that time, Rupa Goswami is also there in their audience, and he's on the side, but he's still working for the Nawab at that point in time. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he asks Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is there any other exalted Vaishnava whose association I need to take before I travel back? And then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hears it, he tells Vallabhacharya ji that you see this person, Rupa Goswami, he points to Rupa Goswami, and then he says, never associate with him. If you have to associate with anybody except him. And then Vallabhacharya ji sees, like, why would he say that? And then he observes Rupa Goswami. And then he sees Rupa Goswami's lips moving very slowly. He's vibrating the holy name of the Lord. He's chanting always. And then he asks Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how can someone who's always uttering the holy name of the Lord be someone I should not associate with? And that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, yes, you have caught the point correctly. You've caught the Tattva Siddhanta that I'm trying to say. Nirantar Namalo, he says, you need to always take the holy name of the Lord, Nirantar. So this is something that's very high bar for everybody. So like, at least me, I try to finish my 16 rounds and then call it a day. And I generally don't chant any extra rounds. But it pleases Prabhupada, and especially Radhesham Prabhu, when he gave a lecture, he said that any number of rounds over 16 that you chant, they are the rounds that really count towards your love of God, because you're doing something more, something beyond what is the bare minimum. Bare minimum is 16. Yes, hit it, great. But if you go over it, whatever you're doing is certainly for the service of the Vaishnavas. It's certainly to please Prabhupada. It's certainly to please the holy name. So when Krishna says Sarva Dharman Parityajya, he says Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, right? But Mam, he comes as what? He comes as the holy name. So it says Sarva Dharman Parityajya Nam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. You need to take shelter of the holy name. And the words that everybody knows, right? Evanaste Evanaste Kalereva Harir Nama Iva Kevalam Kalau Naste Evanaste Evanaste Gatir Anyatha. Anyatha. There is no other way other than chanting the holy name. And Prabhupada, there's another pastime in South India when Srila Prabhupada visited. Generally, in South Indian temples, it's famous for a big bell, and then you ring the bell and you enter. So South Indian devotee comes to the ISKCON temple and he sees that there is no bell. So he sees Prabhupada sitting there and he asks Srila Prabhupada, why is there no bell in your temple? I'm trying to find a bell to ring, but there is no bell in the temple. And that time, Srila Prabhupada, uh, in a half joking, jovial manner, he says, you see, there are so many of my disciples here who are walking by. They're chanting with their tongue. That is the bell here. Whatever they're vibrating with their tongue, that is what the Lord wants to hear, not the bell, the metal bell that you want to ring. So he lays the emphasis that chanting is nirantar chanting should happen. That is the emphasis. Nirantar namalo is the I think I tried to remember the verse, but I wouldn't want to botch it. 3:25:23. It's in the teachings of Kapila Dev to Mother Devahuti. 3:25:25 is everybody's favorite verse, but 3:25:23 is a very instructive verse for everybody. So the Lord says, engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they're always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. So there is this notion of Prabhupada saying 24 hours of service, right? 24 hours of service. I think whenever I see the devotee who comes on Fridays to dress Prabhupada, Vaishnavi Mataji's father, Sham Bhakta Prabhu. So whenever I see him, I always see him chanting, whether he's in the kitchen or whether he's dressing Prabhupada. When I'm trying to chant, I hear a hum. Somebody is also chanting, little loudly though, but it is him. Whenever he's walking by, or when sometimes I cut fruits in the kitchen in the temple, he's always chanting there. And this is the same mood that Maharaj was also mentioning in a previous class. And I observed when Avanish Prabhu was making the gulab jamuns in the temple, you were mixing the sugar syrup, right, with the thing. So Maharaj mentions in one class that when the gopis, when they're churning the butter, the churning rod hitting the pot is the mridangam, and then their bangles hitting the churning rod as they're moving about, that's the kartal. And then the songs that they sing, that is kirtan. And whenever Krishna would hear it, he would do his very best to always be there, always be present there. So there's this very sweet pastime that you can all meditate on that I would like to narrate. So what happens is Mother Yashoda, this is a day before or a few days around the Damodar Leela pastime, where Krishna is sleeping on his bed, and Mother Yashoda is singing. And actually, though I'm sorry, I didn't spend too much time trying to memorize the words. So the verse says that Mother Yashoda was playing her own kirtan, and she would sing songs spontaneously. She wouldn't sing anything from previous acharyas or from the Vedas or from the Puranas. She made her own songs. So the lyrics would be a little broken, maybe. They would not rhyme, but it's coming spontaneously from the heart of Mother Yashoda. There can be nothing more sweet for Krishna to hear than his mother singing. And at that time, Krishna hears it. And then there's this Dravida Prabhu, one of Dravida Prabhu's favorite verses. He says, Naham tishtami vaikunthe, yoginam hridayeshuva, yatra gayanti madbhakta, tatra tishtami narada. Lord Narayan tells Narada that Naham tishtami vaikunthe, I don't stay in Vaikuntha. Yoginam hridayeshuva, not in the hearts of the yogis and the saints. Yatra gayanti madbhakta, tatra tishtami narada. Wherever my devotees sing my holy name, I always reside there. And Dravida Prabhu has these translations for this Keval Ashtakam, which are similar to the Namashtakam, but it is by Neelkantha Goswami, the Keval Ashtakam. He really loves the 5th verse. And I don't know the other 7 verses, but I know the 5th verse. And Dravida Prabhu would, as Vijay Prabhu can also confirm, he has a very poetic translation for all of these verses. And I would always see that he would really relish the 5th verse. And the 5th verse says, Hari sada vaset tatra. Says Hari sada, always. Now this emphasis is on always. Like I would like to emphasize on always in today's class that Hari sada vaset tatra yatra bhagavati jana, where the devotees, bhagavati jana is who are after Bhagavan, like bhagavati jana, who are like God people, you would say, if you literally translate bhagavati jana. And then it says, Gayanti bhakti bhavena harir nama eva kevalam. It says Gayanti, who sing with bhakti bhav, with the love and affection, that this, whatever I'm singing, is only for Krishna. It's not for my entertainment. It is not just to fill my time. Hari Gayanti bhakti bhavena harir nama eva kevalam. only when someone sings with that real love, you will actually know. Sometimes, I mean, especially maybe I can say when I'm going through some difficult circumstance, I would genuinely call out to Krishna without any other motive. I would say, you are really, and sometimes you will feel the reciprocation from Krishna that he's there for you, right? Sometimes you would have felt it at least at once or twice, especially when you're going on books. You would really call out to Krishna and he would suddenly send you somebody, right? So the reciprocation. So Krishna is waiting for that. And this comes as part of building nishtha. When you see the progression, ruchi always comes after nishtha. So nishtha means whether I like it or not, because Krishna likes it, because spiritual master likes it, I will do it, even at the cost of my own inconvenience. And then Krishna sees that, okay, this is real sacrifice. If you see, like today's verse talks about family and parenting, a parent feels so much satisfaction in giving to the child. Like they may not have for themselves, but they're willing to give to the child. Same way, if a devotee is willing to give, even though they may not like to, but they give out of love and affection, Krishna sees it and then he gives ruchi and taste. And in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, that there's a lot of emphasis on how ruchi is coming after nishtha. And that is one of the main points I wanted to emphasize in today's class. Continuing with the pastime of Krishna, so I went off on a tangent. So now Krishna has heard Mother Yashoda's kirtan. So now he knows, he himself has said it, that wherever my devotee sings, I will be there. So then what he does is, he sees, but the problem is Krishna is very small and the bed is a little high. So he has a problem getting off the bed. Now, if he calls out to Mother Yashoda, the kirtan would stop, because Mother Yashoda would leave and then she would come. So the kirtan should not stop. So Krishna is in a conundrum, what to do about this. So how can I get to Mother Yashoda? So he thinks. He first makes, he sees all the things that are available to him. So generally, when the baby is put to sleep, there would be pillows on all four directions so that the baby would not fall off anywhere. So he collects the pillows and keeps them next to him. Then he tries to see how, you know how when people go, not bungee jumping, but when they do some kind of rope climbing, they first throw down a rope and then they go down, right? So he wants to build that, but he has only pillows with him. So what he does is, he arranges the pillows in such a way that he can hold the pillows and the bed frame and slowly wriggle his way down the bed. Now, because he's this much and the bed is this tall, so he's afraid of putting his leg down. And the acharyas comment that Nishprapanchat prapanchaye avatar iti avatar. Nishprapancha means not from this world. Someone who's from the spiritual world, if he has taken avatar from there and he's come here, how difficult would it be for him to go from this much from the bed frame to the floor? So they jokingly comment in that way. And then Krishna holds and he wriggles his way back, and then he waits. As soon as he can feel the floor within touching distance, he knows, it's now I will not fall. And then he puts his leg on the floor. So there's Pejavar Swami in the Udupi Krishna temple. So he has this saying that gravity and Krishna work in very opposite directions. Gravity always pulls something down, but Krishna always uplifts the fallen. So they work in opposite directions. And in this case, we see how Krishna is, come down there, and then he goes to Mother Yashoda, and then that is like a sweet pastime where this happens. Now, the next day or few days after that is when the Damodar Leela happens, and the Acharya, I think today in Hari Prasad Prabhu's class, at least one verse you will hear from him, Hari Suri's Bhakti Rasayanam, where he talks about why this is to wrap up the class and also to give some meaning and depth to one of the pastimes of Krishna that's part of Damodar Leela. When Mother Yashoda sees that the milk is boiling over, she leaves Krishna on the floor and runs to stop the milk. So there he mentions that when Krishna sees that a sincere devotee is falling down, that is the milk boiling over, he always sends his purest devotees to their service. And I think we can confirm the same thing here, especially with regard to ashram leader helping us. But so what happens is, this is what devotees are supposed to do. Krishna will always employ them to save somebody who's falling down. And then what happens is, Krishna is very angry at this point because Mother Yashoda has left him down and gone for something. So Krishna is saying that Mother Yashoda went for something material like milk, leaving Krishna behind just to save the milk. understood that it's to save the milk to make sweets for Krishna. But Krishna is saying that Krishna is displeased when somebody is willing to go for something material, leaving him. It may be temporary or maybe permanent, but Krishna is angered by that. Now, when Krishna was angry, when anybody is angered, you would generally, maybe not you all, but I would try to show that anger on something, right? You would, so in Hindi and Sanskrit, it is called dharashrit. When you show the anger on something, it is to show, it's called dharashrit karna. So it is called to show upon something, right? So one of the easiest way to you would see is when somebody's frustrated, they would just kick something on the floor, or they would hit the floor, or they would show some kind of frustration in that way. So Krishna was also in that mood because now Mother Yashoda has left him. But the Acharyas comment that Hari Suri comments that the lower lip is called adhar. So when he wanted to show his anger, he wanted to like thump the floor like that. But then he realized that so this was revealed to Hari Suri by Krishna himself. So Krishna wanted to like show the frustration, but he realized that he had taken the avatar to protect Dhara, that is Bhumi Devi. So if he himself hits the floor, it may not hurt Bhumi Devi, but he would go against his very purpose of his avatar. So if he does Dhara Shrit, Dhara is also a mother. If he shows his anger, Ashrit, Ashra is shelter. If the Bhumi Devi is the shelter for his anger, then his purpose of his entire pastime or his entire avatar would be a fail. So what he did was he did a dharashrit. Dharashrit is shelter. Adhar is lower lip. So he bit his lower lip in anger, and it may seem like a very innocuous pastime, right? It may seem okay. Well, he got angry and he bit his lower lip, but behind every pastime, behind every action, behind every movement of eyelid of Krishna, there is a certain reason. And Hari Suri also says the mother Yashoda in her previous lifetime, her name was Dhara, and he did not want to show anger on his own mother from previous lifetime. So then he says, Adhar, that's why he showed his anger on Adhar, Dharashrit Kartiya. So that is like a pastime that Radha Govind Maharaj also mentions in some of his classes. And this goes to show that deep meditation that we see in 3:25-23 on the pastimes of the Lord. I will read the translation again. With one's body, one can acquire all goals of life, and it's one's parents who give the body birth and sustenance. Oh, sorry, not this verse. 3:25-23. Yeah, 3:25-23. Kapila Dev is saying, engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they're always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. And now, the more in depth you go into every pastime, you will realize you could say the real nectar of Krishna consciousness. Because the acharyas themselves say, I think Jiva Goswami mentions that every pastime of any demon that Krishna kills, actually, if you read it with sufficient depth, it removes that anartha from you. Because every demon represents a certain anartha. Like Putana shows the anartha of a false guru. And when you hear the Putana pastime very deeply, the notion of becoming a Sahajiya or notion of becoming a false guru when you are actually not qualified, all of those anarthas will be removed if you listen to that pastime with sufficient depth. So Dhenukasur and Vatsasur, all of these pastimes, each of them have a certain underlying anartha. And when you hear the pastimes deeply enough, that anartha will be taken off of you. So now this ties in with what the whole purpose of, the theme I wanted to cover in today's class is the constant chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord. It includes his name, qualities, pastimes, and fame. And when we hear of his pastimes, we purify ourselves. That anartha will go away. And the more anarthas go away, we are progressing. We will eventually reach nishtha, which comes after anartha-nivritti. And once we are in that stage of nishtha, we are in the position to go to ruchi. And then Krishna will pull us up, depending on how sincere our practice is. So with that, I would like to conclude today's class. I offer my prayers to respectful obeisances to all of you. Thank you very much for giving me your time. I hope it was worth your time. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Is any corrections, reflections, challenges, friendly or non-friendly? I'm up for it. Thank you, Tim Prabhu. No. Do you have any? Or no pressure? Can
I like your stories telling and how you connected the Stanford duck syndrome. This is very practical. Many times we read the pulpits and they seem repetitive. But to bring these real world examples for the audience makes it very easy for us to connect to what Prabhupada is saying. You gave the concept of nuclear families and the tail end philosophy. So it's nice to know these terminologies so that we can understand it better. Thank you so much for doing all that research and also bringing us the commentaries from previous acharyas. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that only Parikshit Maharaj
Only
goes to this site, and also Harishwari and Radha Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you so much for explaining it.
Thank you.
It's such a nice beverage. Best smoothie.
Jai Krishna.
Yatra Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Hare Krishna. Vishal.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय श्री प्रभुपाद।